Welcome, everybody, to Monster Monday. My name is DM Gallibond, and tonight on Monster Monday, we are going to be taking a look at a creature known as the Astral Dreadnought. We're also going to be taking a look at several other non humanoid titans that are part of, or that are from the same sort of family as the Astral Dreadnought. As I said, I'm your host, DM Gallibond. This is November 2nd, 2020, and we'd like to send our thanks over to Mo at the tabletopbellhop.com. Go check out Mo's site. He is the OG when it comes to all things for tabletop games. There's all kinds of links over there for everything from rule systems to uh, rules to uh, news about the industry to podcasts about the games to actual play, streams, and all those kinds of other good things. So he's got everything you can think of over there. All right, so what is the Astral Dreadnought and what does the Astral Dreadnought mean to you? Well, this is the Astral Dreadnought. It's as big as an ancient red dragon, and it's covered from head to tail in layers of thick spiked plates. Dreadnought has two gnarled limbs that end in razor sharp pincer claws. Constellations appear to swirl in the depths of its single eye, and the serpentine armored tail trails off into the silvery void. Because, yes, this is a monster that is native to the Astral Sea. So, fortunately, you will not find it hanging around um, Toril or the Material World or Greyhawk or whatever. You'll only find it if you are traversing the Astral Sea. And what do people say about the Astral Dreadnought? What is some of the lore about it? Well, it leads a solitary existence, which is fine. Probably a good thing. On the rare occasion when two dreadnoughts meet, they typically fight until one of them just gets tired of the conflict and leaves. Anti magic eye. Astral sailors claim that insanity awaits anyone who gazes into the eye of an astral dreadnought. We'll talk a little bit more about that effect later. It's an astral predator, a remorseless, indiscriminate hunter. The astral dreadnought employs terrifying, if unimaginative, tactics. What looking at it, what would you think it would do? Yes, it grabs things with those pincers, pulls it up to its mouth, and it bites them. That's how it attacks. Um, Astral Dreadnought doesn't have a gullet or a digestive system. Anything it swallows is deposited into a unique demiplane, an enclosed space that contains eons worth of detritus, as well as the remains of dead planar travelers. Basically, when it eats something, it goes to a demiplane and then and whatever it has eaten just starves to death. Okay, if it's not bad enough to get chased by this thing, not bad enough to get bitten by this thing, not bad enough to get rended apart by its claws, then you just go to some place where you starve. It's yeah, this is a bad monster. I mean, bad as in the case of yeah, you don't want to mess around with one of these things. Astral Dreadnought does not communicate. It simply consumes any prey it finds, then continues on patrol. It cannot leave the astral plane, and even if it could, it wouldn't want to. And Titans of the Chained God. It is said that Tharizdun, the Chained God, created astral dreadnoughts to devour planar travelers who were seeking portals that lead from the astral plane to the outer plane, portals they might use to gaze upon their gods or to realize some dream of their own godhood. And they don't procreate, so their population cannot grow. But they are so rarely encountered, and even more rare it's even more rare for somebody to actually destroy one. So scholars say that you're not going to get rid of these things anytime soon. I mean, even the Githyanki, with all of their stuff, they stay away from these guys. And if the Githyanki stay away from something in the Astral Sea, you know it's pretty bad. All right, so it's classified as a Titan, but a Titan is a subclass of a monstrosity. And according to the actual creature template that it has, it gets the monstrosity template. Monsters in the strictest sense, creatures not ordinary, not truly natural, almost never benign. In this case, created a by the chained god Tharizdun for the sole purpose of destroying people going to the astral sea to seek portals elsewhere. So yes, definitely not benign. And some of the results of magical experiments gone awry, others are products of terrible curses, others are just products of bored gods saying, those mortals are getting too clever. They want to achieve godhood. Nope! Astral Dreadnought, go take care of those guys for me. So, yes, that's one place where monstrosities come from. Okay, now we're going to take a look at Titans, and the reason I decided to look at non-humanoid Titans is because the Astral Dreadnought appears to be a brand new invention for 5e, but there are a boatload of Titans going back through the ages. Most of the Titans are um, are humanoid, but there's a group of Titans in 5e that I thought would be interesting to look at, including the Astral Dreadnought. So let's go ahead and have a look at that. All right, so the first one we're going to look at is our Astral Dreadnought. In addition to some of the things we've also seen, uh, now we've said that, okay, so it just has a lower body like a snake, if you can see here. So it can crawl along at 15 feet and flies at 80 feet with hovering. So that means it's pretty good. The opened eye creates an anti-magic cone, kind of like the central eye of a beholder. So uh, all of the magical protections that an enemy has just cease to exist when this thing puts its gaze on it. So it goes to um, it goes to the oh, this is an interesting thing about that thing where it says it cannot leave the astral plane. This is very important for the clerics in your party. Banish won't work on this thing. If you get attacked by one of these things, it cannot be banished out of the astral sea. So you have to deal with it on its turf. Now, likewise, it cannot be summoned anywhere else, so you don't have to deal with it anywhere outside the astral sea. So for your clerics that have this, fascination with the banishment spell, you better teach them to have something where instead of banishing the enemy, they could just take the entire party and take the party away from the astral plane, just in case you run into one of these things. It has legendary resistance, so it's got that going for it. and gets to attack twice with its claws, once with its bite, plus 16 on its attacks, and its claws do 5d10 plus 9 damage each, and the bite does 5d10 plus 9 damage. The claws do 3d6 plus 9 damage each. Um, where does that 9 come from? That comes from its 28 strength. So yeah, this thing is really pretty bad, and it gets legendary actions. Not only legendary resistance, but legendary actions. It can make a claw attack. Uh, Now, it can cause a creature outside of it to be teleported into that demiplane that's inside the creature's stomach. Um, but the thing is, at the end of the target's next turn, that target reappears outside the Astral Dreadnought in the same space it came from. So, in a weird sort of way, that could be kind of how you could steal treasure from the inside of this Astral Dreadnought. I mean, think about it. This thing has gone around for eons, eating, destroying astral travelers. What kind of stuff is just rotting in that demiplane in its gullet? Well, it focuses that eye on you and it says, I'm going to get that guy. And it teleports you into its gullet. And you're in there, all kinds of magical weapons and loot and stuff. Woohoo! You do your own version of the claw toy from the arcade, and you just grab up everything you can. Then at the end of your turn, boop, you pop back outside, and then you're like, everybody run! Try to get away from this thing. And then it has psychic projection. So each creature within 60 feet must make a 19 wisdom save, or they take 2d10 plus 4 psychic damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. So now, fortunately, that consumes all its actions, so it can only do one of those per turn. But as a legendary action, it can do one of those per round, I should say, on at the end of another creature's turn. So let's see. Um, the anti-magic eye, it does that. What one sees reflected in that starry void is a sudden, terrifying realization of one's own mortality. Yeah, you probably see that, and then you smell this thing's breath as it's getting close enough for you to look into its eye. So yeah, that would probably be terrifying enough. And then because the anti-magic field, um, that spellcasters are really, uh, really terrified from. Okay, Astral Dreadnoughts. Even though Githyanki and other astral voyagers hunt the creatures, rarely see any success, and Dreadnoughts aren't in danger of becoming extinct anytime soon. Well, then you have, to balance that out, you have Magara the Dawn Titan. And Magara the Dawn Titan, this creature featured in one of the 5e published campaigns, uh, Storm King's Thunder, I think is what it's called. Wrath of the Storm King. I don't know. I'm having a moment tonight. Can't remember that exact title, but it is something that it's a gigantic, titanic fire elemental that was used at one time to power the forges of a legendary dwarven city. And the fire giants want it so that they can create a construct that they think will help them, uh, you know, like Pinky and the Brain, take over the world just like they want to do every night. This thing basically burns everything in its path. Uh, every creature within 30 feet of this Titan takes 10d6 fire damage at the start of the Titan's turn, and flammable objects in the aura that aren't being worn or carried ignite. You also take that damage from touching it, and every non-magical weapon that hits it is destroyed by fire immediately after dealing damage to it. So that includes metal weapons, just basically melted by the heat of this thing's form. And as large as it is, a gargantuan elemental, it, because it has this fire form, it can squeeze through a space as small as an inch. Can quench magic, any resistance or immunity to fire damage that by choosing a target, and any resistance to fire is immediately suppressed, and it lasts until the end of the Titan's next turn. Can create a fire elemental by basically budding them off of itself. It sheds 50 of its own hit points and creates a fire elemental that has 102 hit points. And then it can create a smoke cloud. So yeah, Magara the Dawn Titan is a not anything you want to mess around with. And then we have the Krakens. There are a few different Krakens that are Titans that are part of the 5e lore. And these all are kind of like giant fish slash squid monsters. They have the head and front body of a fish, and then instead of a tail, they've got like all these tentacles like a squid has. They're able to breathe air and water, so they actually can move on land, kind of like a seal. Can haul itself out of the ocean and flop around on the land. It has a bite that's plus 17, so even better than the Astral Dreadnought, and a bite deals 3d8 plus 10 damage. And then if you're swallowed, you take 12d6 damage at the start of each of the Kraken's turn. And then if the Kraken takes 50 damage or more on a single turn from a creature inside it, it must succeed on a DC 25 con save or regurgitate everything that it swallowed. Now 50 damage sounds like a lot, but you know, if you've got a a high level wizard that gets lucky enough to be able to cast a fireball spell while inside, yeah, you can deal 50 damage with that. If you bump that up to a higher level spell. Fling. Let's see. So it attacks with the tentacles, dealing 3d6 plus 10 damage. It can fling something 60 feet, and then if it hits a surface, it takes 1d6 damage for every 10 feet it traveled or fell. Can cause a lightning storm that deals 4d10 damage unless you make a dex save. And then, of course, it has legendary actions. Can do the tentacle attack or fling, the lightning storm, or create an ink cloud. And the ink is poisonous, so make a con save or take 3d10 poison damage. And then, of course, Krakens have lairs. And it has lair actions. So if you're within 60 feet in its lair, you're vulnerable to lightning damage. And the strong current, if you're within 60 feet, make a strength check or be pushed 60 feet away. Water becomes electrically charged. All creatures within 120 feet must succeed on a con save or take 3d6 lightning damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. So this thing deals damage constantly to everything around it while it's in its lair. So you definitely do not want to fight the Kraken in its lair. Now, if the Kraken itself weren't bad enough, there's something called the Thessal Kraken. Thessal Hydra? Bueller? Anybody remember Thessal Hydra? Yeah, it's our old boy, the alchemist Thessalar. Created unknown numbers of misshapen magical creatures, including his many Thessal beasts. Among the largest was the Thessal Kraken, a slightly smaller version of the Kraken, resembling the great tentacle beast, but with a jagged tooth maw that drips constantly with acid. So, yeah. Uh, this one, the bite does 3d8 plus 7 damage and adds acid damage. And it takes, and anything swallowed by it takes 21 acid damage as opposed to or 66 as opposed to the 12d6. And then it's required to make a con save if something inside it deals 35 damage. Otherwise, it has the tentacle attack, the fling attack, has acid saliva, which deals 4d10 damage on a failed save, and then it has the same legendary actions as the regular Kraken. And finally, we have the Juvenile Kraken. Now, there's actually something called a young Kraken and something called a Juvenile Kraken, but if you look at them, they're exactly the same. And for some weird reason, okay, this one is from Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and the other one, the young Kraken, is from one of the adventures that comes out of Ghosts of Saltmarsh. So, for whatever reason, they listed the same monster two ways. I think it was probably an editorial mistake, but or an oversight. So they, it appears two different ways, so they have two different entries, but exactly the same stats and everything. And this is just very much like the normal Kraken, but with the stats all kind of reduced a little bit. And as you can see, the Juvenile Kraken has um, exactly the same bonuses for its attacks and everything, and resistances, as does the Thessal Kraken. So basically, what Thessalar did is Thessalar just created a Juvenile Kraken that also deals acid damage. And then, last but not least, among the monstrous Krakens, we have everybody's favorite beast, the Tarasque. Uh, the Tarasque has armor class of 25, 676 hit points. I believe that makes it the most hit points of anything in the game. I think I want to say it and Tiamat have the same hit points, and this thing may actually have more hit points than Tiamat does. But it's immune to fire and poison, and immune to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks. It's immune to being charmed, frightened, paralyzed, or poisoned. Um, Legendary resistances, it has resistance to magic, and it has reflective carapace. So anytime you target it with a magic missile spell, a line spell, or a spell that requires a ranged attack roll, on a 1 to 5, it's unaffected, and on a 6, the Tarasque is unaffected, and the effect is reflected back at the caster, as though it originated from the Tarasque. So, yeah, don't cast magic missile spells because, first of all, it's not going to hurt it, and there's a 1 in 6 chance that all those magic missiles are going to come straight back at you. And it's a siege monster because it does double damage to structures. It has frightful presence, much like a dragon, and then it makes 5 attacks. One with its bite, 2 with its claws, 1 with its horn, 1 with its tail, and it can use its swallow against. Okay, so wait. 1, claw, 2, 3, yeah, 4, and 5. Yeah, okay, alright. So the bite deals 4d12 plus 10 damage, claws 4d8 plus 10 damage, horns 4d10 plus 10 damage, and the tail is 4d6 plus 10 damage. Frightful presence, they swallow attack, and you take 16d6 acid damage while you're in this thing's stomach. And if you want to get regurgitated, you have to deal 60 damage to it in a single turn. Tarasque makes 1 claw attack or tail attack. It can move up to half its speed, and it can chomp, make a bite attack, or use swallow, and those are the legendary actions that it gets. And it's said that only one of these exists in every world in the game, which is probably enough. And the DM usually will not bring out the Tarasque until he is really bored with the game or really angry with his players or her players. So yeah, it's an interesting monster. It's like one of those things that, yeah, okay, that would be something strange to throw at your party. But it's kind of a cool thing that you can have in your game if you're really getting annoyed with your players. So, now how could we use the Astral Dreadnought in encounters? Astral Dreadnought is a CR21 creature. So you're not going to run into this thing until fairly late in the game. Even if you have a plot that takes, or a campaign that takes place mostly in the Astral Sea, you probably don't ever want to have your players run into one of these things until they get to at least level 15. Because with a level 15 party of 5 PCs, the Astral Dreadnought just tips the scale to being a deadly character or a deadly opponent. So if they are out there at under level 15, maybe they'll hear reports that somebody has spotted an Astral Dreadnought. Maybe they are having to go and try to retrieve something from the realm of the chained god, and so they find out that one of these Astral Dreadnoughts is on their tail, and it's going to take a while for it to catch up to them. But that could be sort of like something lingering in the background and getting ever closer and closer and closer and closer, and just sort of a long, slow burn that they know it's coming and they can't do anything about it. Level 16 to 18 by itself, it's a hard encounter. Level 19, it becomes a medium encounter. If you want to push it up to a hard encounter, you can add some sort of CR8 planar enemy. Now, normally I suggest creatures to add, but you're getting really specific here, saying that something is planar, something, CR8, and there's really not a whole lot of enemies out there that fit that bill in the published literature. So you might go and you might homebrew a CR8 planar enemy, take a stat block for a CR8 creature, and give it some sort of template so that it matches the Astral Dreadnought and is like something that would be in its orbit or would make sense to have with it in an encounter. And then at level 20, it's a medium encounter. And to make it a hard encounter, you can add a CR15 planar enemy. And once again, there's not really anything in the published literature that fits that bill, but you can homebrew something using a stat block of a CR15 monster. All right, so that's how to use it, but where do you place it in the campaign? They're natives to the Astral Sea, so your players have to be on the Astral Sea in order to encounter one of these things. They shouldn't come into play until you get the final or penultimate arc of your campaign. Characters should probably be at tier 4 by the time they encounter this creature, unless your campaign maxes out near the top of tier 3, 15, 16, something like that. There is some suggestion in the literature that powerful creatures such as gods may enslave and use the Astral Dreadnought as defenders or assassins. Well, it tells us that it was made by the Chained God. So, like I said, if you're sniffing around the Chained God's Astral City, there may be some of these things bumping around, like in the water or in the skies or, in the forests um, near that city where, yeah, you start to bother the Chained God and these things start coming after you. So that's a thing. Just imagine that as an assassin. But then what about reskinning this thing? How would you reskin an Astral Dreadnought? Well, you can think about doing that with different kinds of planar energy. So Titans, think about Titans, they're forces of creation, both in historic myth and in D&D. We saw how there's the elemental Magara, fire elemental Magara, is a Titan. So, that's sort of like the essence of fire itself. So there might be uh, patrols of dreadnoughts that are on the elemental planes instead of just on the astral plane. So imagine having a fire dreadnought, or an air dreadnought, or a water dreadnought, or a storm dreadnought, or an earth dreadnought for that matter. Um, and then for all of those other sort of in between planes that have been imagined over the years in D&D, there's like the plane of negative energy, the positive energy plane. You could have energy dreadnoughts, basically a necrotic dreadnought, if you will, that might be patrolling the Shadowfell. That would be pretty terrifying. Or you could simply take the stat block from a dreadnought and give it to like a celestial guard dog. So let's say you are trying to poke around uh, a deity's keep or castle or manor house. Maybe that deity has a guard dog. And just imagine giving Fido the stat block of this Astral Dreadnought. So think about ways you could kind of take the stats and give it to a different type of creature. Um, that would be a terrifying guard dog. CR21 guard dog would be very appropriate for a god or demigod to have. All right, everybody. I don't see any questions right now on the stream, so I'm going to go ahead into the wrap up and then I'll double check and see if there are any questions that have come in. And yes, uh, speaking of Magara, the adventure is Storm King's Thunder. Thank you. I knew it would come to me. That is the and I was somehow getting that title mixed up with something else. All right. So for the wrap up, This has been Monster Monday. I've been DM Gallibond. Tonight we've been talking about the Astral Dreadnought. On this Twitch channel, you can find 3 actual play campaigns that I'm running every week. Thursday night is the Sword Coast Chronicles. Sunday afternoon is the Walker of Waterdeep, and the new game that we've started on Saturday night is the Lost Mine of original D&D, where we're retelling the Lost Mine of Phandelver using characters and monsters that all conform to original D&D statistics, and we're playing it with the original D&D rule set. So, same story, same maps, same encounters, but a completely different set of rules. And we're trying to see how that plays out. Scratching an itch that I have for old D&D. And I found a few players who wanted to do that with me. So, lucky me. You can find all that on my Twitch channel. You can find archives of everything I do over on my YouTube channel. And if you really like everything that we're doing, you can go over to Patreon and help us out. All right, let me go ahead and take a look. Okay, I see no questions. So thank you for those of you who've been on the stream tonight. And thank you for those of you who come and watch in the days and weeks ahead. Hello, future people. And with that, I will sign off the same way I always do, saying, watch out for the monsters under the bed, especially if they look like this guy. Talk to you later. Hope to see you next week. Good night.